Hey, and welcome everyone. This is episode 7 of the AKS Zero to Hero series that Gregor and myself are doing. Today's is a live Ask Me Anything. So welcome everyone for who's here joining us right now. It's a pleasure to have you here. So I think in the chat I can see Wesley and Matt. So hi to both of you. If you're also watching, please feel free to say hi via the chat. Hopefully we're streaming on YouTube and on Twitter. Fingers crossed. I haven't checked, but we'll see what happens afterwards. So, hey, Gregor, how are you?
Yeah, nice intro, Richard. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm looking forward to this. I'll probably just ask you the questions. It's ask Richard, not ask Gregor. Okay, cool.
Sounds good to me.
Let's kick things off. We've got 2 or 3 questions from people on Twitter, if you don't mind me going ahead and asking them. So we've got a question from Ed Baker. He's asking, can I deploy Windows pods to Linux node pools and vice versa?
Yeah, so basically with AKS and Kubernetes as a whole, you can actually only install Windows pods to a Windows node and Linux pods to Linux nodes. But your cluster can have a Windows node pool and a Linux node pool. So you can have one cluster, 2 different sets of nodes hosting the 2 different pods, OS type pods. So in that sense, you can have one cluster, 2 node pools, Windows and Linux, and you can host it, but you can't run a Windows pod on a Linux node pool.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to say hello to Johnny Chips, who's just arrived. Hi, John. How you doing? Okay, so nice question there. Next up, we have a question from Matt Boyd. Would you recommend building a PI-style Kubernetes cluster for learning how it works, or sticking to sandboxing and AKS?
So that really all depends how deep you want to go. If you want to sort of know the basics about Kubernetes, running pods, deployment applications, then stick to AKS because the management plane is all handled by Azure. If you want to get sort of knees deep, hands deep into Kubernetes, get yourself a couple of Raspberry Pis, or 4, like I just did, and build your own Kubernetes cluster. There's a blog post that went up today on my blog, pixelrobots.co.uk. And there I walk through how to set up a Raspberry Pi Kubernetes cluster using Containerd as a runtime to match AKS. So if you want to go sort of knees deep into Kubernetes, build yourself a Pi cluster, or if you've got some servers laying around, use that or whatnot. If you just want to know the basics of Kubernetes, able to deploy it and the sort of quirks you get with Azure, then just go AKS.
Okay. Are you doing that for any purpose? Did you say you were learning this, was it CKA exam or something like that?
Yeah, so CKA, Certified Kubernetes Administrator. So because with that, you need to sort of know the ins and outs of Kubernetes, like how to back up the database, the etcd database and stuff like that. You can't do that in Azure, in AKS, because Microsoft manage all of that. So I needed to spin this up so I could play with it. I was going to look at other distributions like K3S, which is Kubernetes, like everything pulled out that you don't need, and it's really lightweight version of Kubernetes, but it doesn't use etcd database, and I need to know how to back that up for the CK. So I've gone full-fledged Kubernetes using kubeadm to install it, and it's have a look at the blog post. It explains it quite well, I hope. Did
it cost much to spin that up, like to buy all the kit?
So I got some Raspberry Pi 4s. They were about £55 each, and I got 4 of them, so not the cheapest. And then I've got a sort of a power adapter that splits the USBs. So that was, I can't remember exactly how much that is, but I got on the blog, I got a list of all the resources I brought, so you can have a little look at that, and it's got links to Amazon and everything.
Cool. Do you want to pop that link into your blog post on the resend?
Yeah, I will try and find it and then get it up there.
Okay, cool. Hello to Andrew McCallum, who's also joined. Thanks for joining, Andrew. So Wesley's asked the question, what are your thoughts on open service mesh? What is that to begin with?
Open service mesh is Microsoft's Microsoft's, what's the word I'm looking for, version, I guess, of a service mesh. They're basing it, so they're creating it all out in the open so anyone can contribute to it, hence why they call it open service mesh, because it's open source. A service mesh basically sort of allows you to have more control over what your Kubernetes cluster is doing. So you can enable TLS encryption between pods and services, which is really cool. You can do sort of canary deployments a lot easier and everything like that. We did create an AKS ebook through Intercept, which is where I work and you work. I go into a few details about service mesh there, so I highly recommend you go and find that and download it. Just simple Google search should bring that up.
I'll try and find that when you're answering all these questions. Cool. Hi, Ryan. We've also had somebody called Ryan join the YouTube channel. Welcome. Thanks for joining. Okay. What are we actually going to look at next? After this is episode 7. What's episode 8 going to be?
So episode 8 is going to hopefully be all about deployments and how to deploy your resources to Kubernetes. We've gone through that very basically, but we're going to talk about like rolling updates, surges in AKS, so how you can surge your nodes when you're sort of doing a deployment if you need to, and all of that fun stuff. But I won't give away too much details now because I want people to come and watch it.
I like it. Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, we've got another question from somebody called Alun Emanuel on Twitter. What best practices would you recommend for securing AKS?
So there's quite a few, but obviously the most important ones are make sure you lock down your network security groups if you have any. So like if you're doing an ingress, make sure your network security groups are locked down to allowed IPs if possible, or you put a web application firewall in front of it. So you could use either the application gateway ingress controller, which isn't the best, but it's just come GA, I think, got announced at Ignite, or you could use like Nginx and use mod security. They have a built-in sort of add-on for OWASP scanning web application firewall, and so that's what I prefer to use rather than application gateway ingress controller, because I find it's a lot quicker. You get a bit more support with the community as well, so there's a lot more blog posts about how to do things and everything like that.
Cool. Right, I've put your blog post link in if you want to share that.
Yep, so that's that one there.
Cool.
But if you just go to PixelRobots, it'll be straight at the top and you should easily find it.
Cool. And I've also put a link into the AKS ebook.
Cool. Let me just get that one. Put that up on the screen for everyone.
Okay, so next question we have is from John Lunn. Hi, John. Do you know of any cool reference applications / set of images that could be used for learning purposes, i.e. deploy and scale with Kubernetes?
So I've never really used any myself. I've always had real life scenarios to learn from. But I believe there's a few, like on the Microsoft website, you can get the voting app, which gives you a Redis cache backend, nice front end and stuff like that, which is quite cool. I think, if I remember right, there's also this website here you can go to, which is has a lot of information on there. It tells you a lot about Kubernetes and AKS and some scenarios and that you can go through. So hopefully that should be able to help you in the right direction. But the voting app scenario you get through the Microsoft Docs is quite cool.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's go to YouTube now. So we've got a question from Andrew McCallum. Regarding using a Pi, what's the benefit for dev? Example, what to suggest regarding tips?
Explain that one again first, sorry.
Regarding using a Pi, what's the benefit for dev? Example, e.g., what to suggest regarding tips? So I guess he's going to ask, what's the benefits of using a Pi if you're a developer?
So if you're a developer, one, you get sort of a real world Kubernetes experience as such, but the downside of using a Pi if you're a developer is it's ARM based. So your architecture, you need to design your apps to work on ARM processors rather than x86 or 64-bit. So for a developer, if you're working on ARM, brilliant. If you're not, then I would probably stick to VMs or AKS or a managed service.
Okay. So Matt's back. Hi, Matt. Welcome. So Matt's question is that. I don't know if you've got that there, but I've just pasted it in. If you want to try and put that up.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find that one. Bear with us. one now, I think it was. Yeah, so learning paths I recommend would be obviously this series. And the Microsoft Docs is really good. And Microsoft Learn, they have a AKS workshop. And there is also on Microsoft a 50-day Learn Kubernetes in 50 days. So have a quick Google of that. It comes up at the top. That's really good. And if you can get your hands on Nigel Poulton's book, the Kubernetes book, it's an amazing book. It goes into so much information. The way he tells and explains Kubernetes is just awesome. So definitely recommend Nigel Poulton's book.
A few of his books on there. Quite a few of his books. So Andrew's got a follow-up question, which I'll just paste in there if you want to copy that in. So he's asking, why use a PI? Is it, for example, controlled state or to be able to manage it?
Okay, so why this one here, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, no, sorry, it's further down. No, we've already answered that one. I've put
So
it in
if
the
you had
type.
all right, hang on 1 second. Let me just copy that.
That's his next question.
All right. So this one here.
That's us, yeah.
Yeah, so basically the reason I'm using a PI is just because I need to learn how Kubernetes works, like the sort of the control plane, the master section of it. So I need to know how etcd works and all of that stuff so I can pass the certified Kubernetes admin exam. And you know, if I was a developer, I probably wouldn't have set one up unless I wanted to play with ARM images and ARM stuff like you know, I think I've seen Pete does a lot of IoT stuff, Pete Gallagher. So he would probably enjoy something like this and be able to do a lot of IoT stuff with it.
Cool. So you had the other question from, there's another follow-up from Andrew. I think
this one here.
Yep.
Yeah, if you have a spare PC laying around, get Hyper-V on it and pop a few VMs on it. Or you could use Kubernetes in Docker, which is like if you could search for Kubernetes kind, K-I-N-D. So it's Kubernetes in Docker, basically. And then you can spin up a Docker node on your machine, well, Kubernetes inside Docker on your own development machine and do quite a lot of the stuff that way as well. With that, you can actually connect it to Azure Arc and then play with Azure Arc Kubernetes, which is quite cool.
Okay, I've just pasted in the next one, again from Matt. So Matt asks, which book is the start of Nigel's, as he's done a few on Kubernetes and Docker rules, which book are you referring to?
Nigel's book is the Kubernetes book. He has got, in fact, I have them here up on the bookshelf. So he has got this one, which is Hands-on Quick Start for Kubernetes. This is his newest book. It's quite thin. It gives you the basics of it. Even my partner managed to understand a bit about Kubernetes by reading that. And then I've got his Klingon version of the Kubernetes book. It's English on the inside. It's just a cool cover, which is so cool. You know, he actually signed this one for me, which was really cool. So I highly recommend them and anything that Nigel does. He has some courses on Pluralsight as well. So yeah, definitely give them a check.
Okay, cool. Right, we've got another question from Johnny. I'll just paste it in for you. Oops, I forgot to put Johnny's name on that one.
Cool.
So Johnny's asking, I've read about Docker Swarm. How comparable is it, the syntax with Kubernetes and Swarm? Do you know if any pros and cons between each?
So I've never actually touched Docker Swarm config files because I worked at this place and they were going to go down Swarm, but then Kubernetes took over just at the last minute and they ditched everything and went Kubernetes. So I would not recommend spending time learning Swarm because Kubernetes has won the orchestration race. So yeah, I don't know the answer to that one, but I wouldn't spend my time looking into it if that makes sense.
Okay. Matt's just asking, did you make her read that book before she could use your circle light thing?
Yeah, definitely.
What's the circle light thing?
So the ring lights. I bought one, and my partner decided she wants it, so no, I don't have one.
That's not good. Need to buy two.
Yeah,
you should have kept that to yourself.
definitely.
Okay, so Wesley's saying, so I would say Docker Swarm for simplicity. If you need orchestration and more complex environments, Kubernetes.
There we go. I popped it up on this screen for us.
Cool.
You used to be able to do Docker Swarm in Azure, but I don't think it's there anymore. I think they got rid of that a little while ago in favor of Kubernetes.
Okay, so I think we're out of questions just now. If anybody's got any other questions, please do ask. Did we put up the code for the previous version onto GitHub?
Yes, yeah. So it's just on the GitHub repo, so that should all be fine. If people wanted to get to Nigel's book, Gregor's got the link, so I'm just going to pop it on the screen for you there. But if you just look for Kubernetes book, Nigel Poulton, it'll come up in Amazon, and yeah, it's definitely worth getting. If you get it through Kindle, every time he does an update, you get the updated version as well. If you get it through LearnPub, then you also get the same thing.
Nice.
I think we got
I'm sure
some
Ryan
more
had
questions.
A question. Oh, Ryan had a question. Sorry, I missed that. I want to pop that in there.
This one here?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So I haven't actually tested Windows 2022 yet in AKS. I really want to do it. It's on my list. I've got a potential customer that could use this because there's a cool feature in Windows 2022 container images. So with AKS currently, if you have, everything in Azure runs on UTC time zone. In AKS, your nodes run on UTC time zone, but you have some customers who want their pods, their containers, to run in a different time zone. You can't actually do that in Server 2019 container images. You have to run a daemon set to change the time on the nodes. But with 2022, you can actually change it. It's like a virtualized time zone. So I'm really excited to try that out. It sounds a bit simple, but yeah, I'm super excited about that.
Cool. So there's another question for Wesley from YouTube if you want to pop that
in. Yeah. This one here. Oh, no, not that one. A bit further
so he's
down.
asking, if you put pass environment variables to a pod, where should you store them? What's your preference?
So my preference for that would be Azure App Configuration. It's a service in Azure. You can store all your app configuration in there, and then the Kubernetes pods will go off to the API of the app configuration and pull all the config down. Another good thing about that is it actually integrates nicely with Key Vault, so all your secrets and everything can be stored in Key Vault, all secure, and it just all goes through the same API endpoint of the app configuration. So definitely use that.
Okay. Johnny's saying he also highly recommends the book as well from Nigel, so that's good.
Yeah, the Docker book's really good. It's a very good book.
Somebody's deleted the question. I think that's it for now.
So Matt Bradley is asking this question about Pinocchio. So this one, I think, basically, Matt wants to know, and I think Gregor, you got to answer this one. If Pinocchio said his nose is going to grow, would it?
Say what now? It's like what?
Exactly. If Pinocchio said his nose is going to grow, would it?
Yes.
There we go. There's your answer, Matt. So we have another question here. What's the alternative for Azure App Settings? So if you don't want to use that, you can use config maps in Azure. So you can store sort of configuration values in there and then either map it as a volume to your pods or environment variables. So you can do that. It's not as secure as app configuration, because like if you stored a secret in Kubernetes as a Kubernetes secret, it's just base64 encoded, so it's very easy to decode. Whereas if you do it through app configuration, super secure in Key Vault.
Okay. Wesley wants to know, why have you still got a printer?
The printer is actually also a scanner as well, and I use it when I need to print return labels for Amazon, or if my partner, she's a landscape architect and she needs to print a something out to trace or mark up some changes needed, she does it and then scans it back in and sends it to work. But that's why it's just a little one on the shelf and not the best. Yeah.
Cool. I think we've had all our questions answered. We'll just quickly scan it.
I think Wesley's got another one. If you were to need persistent storage, what options do you have? So if it's just one pod running and not in a deployment, you could use a managed disk in Azure. If you have multiple pods in your deployment, you're going to have to use Azure files. And hopefully they're not a lot of files, because Azure files isn't the fastest we found. So try not to use persistent. Yeah, try not to use persistent storage in any of your apps. If you need to, try and use a database like Azure SQL or something like that. It's a lot. It'll save you a lot of pain going forward. We've got another question here about ingress controllers. So for me, my best ingress controller is the Kubernetes Nginx ingress controller. It seems to have the most support with the community and stuff like that. I'll put this up as well to answer this one. No is the answer. I've tried it a few times. It's slow to update. And if you're using the new AKS add-on, which just came out recently as well at Ignite, then you can only have one per cluster, which isn't the best, because you want to be able to have multiple ingresses, because you could potentially have your dev stuff on a cluster, your test stuff on one cluster, and sharing one ingress is not the best. So I would definitely personally not use it yet. Maybe one day in the future it will come and be better and faster. They do have a public roadmap on GitHub, but there's not much on it. But there's a lot of issues, so that sort of tells me something personally as well. What's this one we got from Andrew here? Yeah, DWG files. Yeah, lots of stuff like that. AutoCAD and stuff like that. Yeah, loads of weird programs that they use, Andrew. Yeah, I try to stay out of all of the landscape architecture stuff. It's a bit above my head, to be honest with you. I couldn't be doing all of that.
Matt Bradley's just asked another question.
So will we do, Matt has this one here. Can you use shared disks in Azure for persistent storage also? So shared disks, I don't think work. If I remember correctly, it's just Azure files or a managed disk for one pod, because the way it has to attach itself to the managed disk, it can't have multiple. What's the other bit? I think we use GPv2 files. I can't remember off the top of my head. I can come back to you on that one offline or something. Wesley says, will you do a session on Helm? Wesley, we might get you on to do that, because you're the Helm expert, I believe, after what I've been seeing you perform lately. But Donovan Brown has done a nice little intro to Helm the other day, so have a look on his YouTube channel for that.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah. Okay. Was there anything AKS related to Ignite that caught your eye?
There's this new feature called maintenance windows. Not much has been announced about it. They had a link to a Git repo with a very small snippet for an ARM template, and that was about it, really. So I've did a little digging. I found the Azure CLI commands, did a little test, and it's not doing much at all. So I did a little blog post about that, so you can check that out on PixelRobots if you want to see. But yeah, hopefully it'll be interesting. And if it's going to work how I hope it works, then your cluster will be a bit more, not the word stable, but you've got less chances of Azure doing things to your cluster in your business hours than outside, when they're doing updates to the back end, Hyper-V hosts and stuff.
Cool. Another question from Matt.
Yeah.
Wesley says he's up for coming on and doing that, so that's good.
Ah, good. Yeah, no, we tried premium storage accounts, and it's not that quick. When there's lots of little files, it's not the best. Maybe if there's big files, it's all right, but when it's like login and stuff like that, it's just, Azure files is not not the best at
I
that.
was actually doing something with Azure File Storage today and saw the same thing. Performance on standard accounts terrible. Well, not terrible, but slow. And then I moved it to a premium account, and it's not much faster. And again, it's lots of small files, so I don't know if that's anything to do with it, but it wasn't much faster, to be honest, which was disappointing because it's quite a lot more expensive.
Yeah, which is another downside to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gregor, I was looking at Twitter the other day, and you had a nice tweet from Brendan Burns, I believe.
Oh yes. So I can't remember. I think Donovan Brown was talking about something, and I just jumped in and said hello type thing, and then Brendan Burns popped up. I think you put a link into our session, and then I said to him, "Would you like to come on?" And he said yes. So we will get Brendan Burns on. So that would be quite exciting.
Yeah,
who's Brendan Burns?
A lot of notice. Yeah,
who's Brendan Burns?
Brendan Burns is actually one of the co-founders of Kubernetes. So once we get him on, we can have some hopefully deep conversations about Kubernetes. You can ask random deep questions, and someone will actually know the answer to the ins and outs of it. So that should be good.
I think my favourite sessions of all time that I've seen anyone doing stuff was him with the glass. Did you see the bit where he was on the glass and he was writing and you could see it through it? I thought that was brilliant. I'd love to see more of that. It's like a whiteboard, but he's writing on glass.
Yeah, definitely.
That was very cool.
I've got another question from Wesley. With the momentum that Kubernetes picked up, do you expect something to take over anytime soon? Will there be a better alternative? So recently, Google released something called GKE Autopilot, which is like a fully managed Kubernetes cluster with all their best practices. I tried it out. You can do quite a bit with it, but you can't install things like Cert Manager, which automatically renews your certificates through Let's Encrypt. And other bits and pieces just don't work very well yet because they've locked it down so much. You can't do custom mutations and all of that fun stuff. So the way I see it going is soon developers will say, here's my container image. This is how many I want. And this is what it needs to talk to. Azure go set it all up, and then it will just go off and do it all. So maybe using the Dapper framework or something like that. I don't know. But I definitely think that's where it will go. And hopefully it will become, Kubernetes in the background will become like, you don't have to do much to it, but there will still be the option where if you need to run Kubernetes in a slightly non-managed way, then you have that option too. I think we've got another question from Matt as well.
Yep.
Yeah, no. There's something we could look into. I can't remember what I tried because it was like a couple of weeks or so ago, but thanks for the tip, Matt. I will have a little play and see.
Worth trying, yeah. I was just checking Twitter to see if there's any more questions real quick. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, I forgot we were live streaming on Twitter as well. And just checking YouTube in case there's any on there. Doesn't seem to be. Cool. So I guess if there's no more questions, we are close to the 30-minute mark, so we could probably wrap this up now.
Okay, so what's coming up next? Let's cover what we're going to do next. So we've got an app, a web app deployed to AKS.
Yep.
Done.
Yep. So what we're going to look at there is, I think what we'll do, we'll create a new version of it. So because the old image was V1, so we'll create a V2. Then we'll look at how we can deploy V2 without much downtime. There might be a tiniest amount of downtime, but we'll have a little play and we'll see. And then we can go through what sort of deployment methods we can do, rolling upgrades and stuff like that. And then we'll try and talk about maybe node surges as well. Okay.
So just in case there's anyone out there who's got any questions or anything that they want covered that we haven't covered so far, please do let us know. We've obviously got lots to cover in AKS, but if there's anything specific that's troubling you or you've got any specific questions, then let us know. Yep.
We can, we can always jump on another live session and answer your questions, maybe do a little demo or something like that as well, which will be quite cool.
When do we think we'll try and get Brendan on?
Well, we've got to email him and then see when he's free. And as soon as we know, we'll let everyone know.
Sometime next month, hopefully. Yeah, okay, cool. So Wesley's asking quickly, will you do a session on STO deployments, feature flags? That'd be quite interesting.
Potentially. service meshes might have their own, become closer to the end of the series once we know how AKS works and everything. I think we should probably mention service meshes at one point. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. I think that's us. That's a wrap. So half an hour. That was quite good. Just
Cool.
Not too long, not too short. So yeah, thanks for joining, everyone.
Cool. See you guys next time.
Okay. Thanks again. Cheers, guys. Bye bye.